Welcome to the Daughters Project podcast. We're so glad you're here. Join us this season as the sisters gather around the mics to share their experiences of God's love through the lens of His sacred word. You can find out more about our work at thedaughtersproject.com and on social media at DaughterSTPaul. Enjoy today's episode.
Hello and welcome to the Daughters Project podcast. I'm Sister Julie Benedicta.
I'm Sister Orianne, Pietra, René.
And today we are joined by
Sister Barbara.
Hi,
Hello,
Sister
hello.
Barbara.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you.
How are you doing?
Fine, thank you. And you all are ready to evangelize.
We are.
We are all.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Here we go. Sister, you are visiting us from where now?
I'm visiting from St. Louis, Missouri.
And Sister, you don't have to give an exact number, but about how long have you been a daughter of St. Paul, and how did you first meet us?
Well, I'm a daughter of St. Paul. My entry date was 63 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And my profession date was 1964.
Okay.
My first vows.
And how did you first meet us?
Actually, my family, we were expecting a new member of our family. My mother was carrying David, and two sisters. My parents wrote a note to the teacher saying that I wouldn't be in today because my mother was expecting that day, and so I was home. And two daughters of St. Paul were visiting Philadelphia, and on their way home, they were coming down our street. They were going towards the L, which is the train in Philadelphia. They said, let's try a few houses here. So they knocked on the door. I answered the door, and my eyes were big as saucers because I wanted to be a sister, and I was taught by sister. And but I was rather young, so anyway, in my heart I kept saying, please, God, make them ask me if I want to be a sister.
Oh, wow.
Please, God, make them ask me. And then finally, Sister Mary Tekla piped up and said, did you ever think of becoming a sister? Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So they came back. That was in May. And they came back during Christmas vacation from school, and they asked if I wanted to go back with them to Staten Island, New York from Philadelphia, and to spend like a little weekend with them. So my parents gave me permission to go because I was before my high school age. Mm-hmm. And when I came back, I said, this is it. I said to my parents, this is it. I have to go.
That's so
So
cool.
that was...
and that was when the sisters were still doing door-to-door evangelization, right?
Yes, they were. But in Philadelphia, we didn't have a commons, so they came from New York to visit some benefactors and to show new titles of books to them. And that's when they decided on the way back down to the train to stop and visit some families.
Amazing.
So my mother was home, and she obtained the Eternal Wisdom, Bible Stories for Tots, and other books, one on Santeres and one on Padre Pro from Mexico. Oh, cool. And I read and reread them and so on. Yeah,
and did you do door-to-door evangelization for a while yourself?
Yes, I did from 1962 up until about 1984.
Oh,
wow. You were a pro.
Yeah. Yes.
Wow.
I could tell a very interesting story if you'd like to hear it.
Yeah.
There was a gentleman, I'll never forget this story. The sisters were at the doorstep of a house, and they rang the doorbell, and then a lady came to the door she was like white as a ghost, and she said, who are you? And we said, oh, they're daughters of St. Paul, and so on. And we're visiting with our publications. And she said, well, the doorbell has not rung for 38 years.
Oh, my goodness.
And come to find out that her father had not been to confession for a very, very, very long time.
Wow.
So the sisters were able to put the gentleman and the daughter in touch with the priest who could administer the sacrament of reconciliation.
Wow.
So anyway.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So there were many stories like that. We would find out that a person passed away, and we had just visited them and got them in contact with the church. So
that's amazing.
very beautiful conversion stories and young people coming back to church, etc.
Wow. Very cool. So, sister, what is the Bible passage that you've picked for us to pray with today?
I picked Jesus visits Martha and Mary.
All right. That's from the Gospel of Luke.
Of Luke, right.
Okay. Would you mind reading that for us?
I don't mind at all. As Jesus and his disciples went on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha welcomed him in her home. She had a sister named Mary who sat down at the feet of the Lord and listened to his teaching. Martha was upset over all the work she had to do, so she came and said, "Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do all the work by myself? Tell her to come and help me." The Lord answered her, "Martha, Martha, you are worried and troubled over so many things, but just one is needed. Mary has chosen the right thing, and it will not be taken away from her."
So what drew you to this passage? What made you want to share with it?
Well, I'm the oldest of a large family, and sometimes I see the Martha in me, and other times I would go upstairs in front of the Sacred Heart picture and tell Jesus I wanted to spread the gospel to the whole world. And in some way or form, and I said, I don't think I could teach in school, and I don't know if I could nurse, but could you find some way that I can help thousands of people? And I used to stop in church on the way home from school and say the same prayer over and over again. I think he got tired of hearing me. When the sisters came, Sister Mary Tekla, one of them, and Sister Adelaide, who has since passed away, said those words.
Oh, wow.
We don't teach in schools directly, but we teach through our books. We don't work in hospitals, but we help those who are ill to come back to the Lord, ill in the sense of spiritual and also physically, because when we pray, it actually helps our health too.
Sure.
So, and then the rest is history. They came back to Philadelphia on another trip, and then another trip, and then within 1 year, I entered the order.
Wow.
Yeah, 1959.
Amazing.
So
this really has a reflection in your own life, this passage.
Yes. So there's the Martha in me because I had my little regimen on Saturday. I'd get up, have my breakfast, and then start cleaning the living room and the dining room and the kitchen. My mother would say, like, wow, whatever's motivating you.
Oh, she didn't even ask. You
Keep
just did
it up. I just did it. Yes, I was like a little
child.
Yes. And then on the way home from school, I would stop in church and pray. And there was a family next door that they had an elderly uncle that lived with them, and he used to go up to church to pray. So I would follow him. It was just a block away, and we would go all the way up to the altar rail, and he would pray the Angelus, which when I wasn't in school, I would forget the answer to the prayer. So he would say, "The angel of the Lord declared unto Mary," and I was like, he was a little deaf, so, and then he'd say, "Behold the handmaid of the Lord," So, but anyway, the Lord accepted my lack of memory from school. And and then I would spell out to Jesus what kind of mission I would like to have in life. So there was the part of me that wanted to be a contemplative and the other part that wanted to be active in spreading God's word.
Okay, what I love about that, though, is that you are standing there telling Jesus what job you want him to give you, which is like, it just sounds like such a thing that Martha of Bethany would do. Like, just the way that she would run up. Like, we had an episode not too long ago with Sister Chelsea Bethany, and talking about the family at Bethany and just about how Martha just really being willing to put herself completely in front of the Lord and just vulnerably and frankly tell him exactly what she's thinking.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So there's also like the element of complaining. And then, but the redeeming for me also not lately, but quite a while ago, Martha came to mind again, and she could have been like, that's it. I'm done with Jesus. She corrected me in public and I'm finished. Hello, how are you? And that's about it. But he was raising Lazarus from the dead, and he said, do you believe I can do this? In sort of another way of saying it. He asked for faith, and she said, I have come to believe that you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. And so that part of Martha that still venerated him, adored him, loved him. So that's what I admire in Martha. And then, of course, the Mary in me wants to be like contemplative all the time in my heart, no matter what I do.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I remember when I first entered postulancy myself, I entered with another lovely young woman. And I always felt like we were a bit of a Martha Mary pair, because she was very naturally more inclined to the contemplative aspect, and I was naturally more inclined to the active. And it was so helpful for us to be together to kind of challenge one another on both, and to help each other grow in both was so helpful, because in all of our lives, most of us tend one way or another naturally, and to have people in our lives who can help balance us out, because all of us need some aspect of contemplation, right? Like that's how we get to know the Lord, sitting before him, looking upon his face, talking to him, letting him talk to us. And over in the Old Testament, it talks about that act of contemplation, like contemplating the Lord, as something that brings delight and knowing. But on the other hand, if we never do anything with that, if we never let it change us, if we never let it affect how we reach out to others, whether it's people in our own circle or people beyond, then it hasn't borne fruit. It's dead, And it's so cool to see with these two sisters how Jesus brings that out in Martha, because she is the one who complains. And I think it's hilarious how we always just assume she's the oldest, because technically speaking, we don't know, but we just know that she must be.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's true. Any integrated life really requires both parts. And I have to say, I cringe every time this gospel comes up. And almost, I would say 9 times out of 10, the homily ends up being something about how we need to imitate Mary and not Martha, and Martha needed to chill out, and Martha was wrong, and blah, blah, blah. But that's not what Jesus said at all. He didn't say, Martha, you're doing something wrong. He said, Mary has chosen the better part, not the only good part. And
Right.
I came across a passage from Pope St. Gregory the Great, who said, Martha's care is not blamed, but Mary is praised. For great are the rewards of an active life, but those from the contemplative are even better. Hence Mary's part, it is said, will never be taken away from her. For the works of an active life pass away with the body, but the joys of the contemplative life begin to increase from the end. So his point is Mary's doing the thing we will be doing in heaven. So that's going to last forever. Martha's taking care of the body that will eventually be in the grave, right? And so that thing's not going to last forever. So naturally, one is better than the other. But that doesn't mean we do away with the one. There's a great quote from St. Augustine who says, so do we just then leave the poor in their poverty? Because, the works of mercy we just throw them out. We don't worry about them because Jesus did this, And
the answer is pretty self-evident.
Clearly,
no.
Clearly, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think Martha became a bit of a contemplative.
Oh, absolutely.
After a while, because she heard Jesus' voice.
Absolutely.
She loved him. She attested to his divinity, the Son of the living God.
And I would like to think that Mary became a little more active.
Yeah.
I would like to think that, or I'd like to see that happen too,
Yes.
Yeah.
I was going through and finding different passages in Scripture where it talks about contemplation or hospitality. And I found a lot in the Old Testament, but the one that made me laugh was from the New Testament. It's from the first letter of Peter, who was there for this whole interaction. And in his first letter, he writes to the people he's writing to, not to Mary and Martha, above all, love each other deeply, because love covers a multitude of sins. Offer hospitality to one another without grumbling.
Yeah, you do kind of wonder, was he thinking about this?
Why? We'll just let her listen. But I always really appreciated that, because I think it shows, because as you brought out, Sister Barbara, that was a public correction.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a little bit humiliating. That can sting. And the fact that Martha took it in stride really does speak to her humility in that moment. And it also speaks, I think, to Mary's humility, because she was automatically put in an awkward situation when her sister interrupted Jesus' teaching to complain about what she was doing in front of everybody. So I think it's a really beautiful moment of healing for both of the sisters, and a really beautiful teaching moment for all of the men who were present, who were expected to be sitting there listening. And I think that that's so important because very often it's very easy to extend hospitality while grumbling. I think we can all take a step back and think of either our own lives or as children watching what our parents did or what our parish did. It's very rare that you would host someone that you didn't know well or weren't very comfortable with, or even your own family, and when they leave, you don't complain about something that happened or something they did or something you wish would have been different or what you did wrong with the food, or like something always goes wrong and you complain about it. But I love that Peter kind of pulls out this, like, what is our focus on here in our hospitality? He's kind of calling in the verse above, like, let the focus be on love. And love comes from that contemplative gaze, from that knowing. So even when we're with one another, the way that we extend the hospitality of Christ to others does involve an element of being able to listen to them and to let them speak to you and looking upon their face, you know, and getting to know them. And in doing that, in that contemplation of the other, we allow ourselves to see Christ in them, and we allow them, God willing, to see Christ through us. Right? Like through our listening, the way he listens to us. Kind of like you were saying, like he listened to the repetition of that prayer you said over and over and over again with love, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
And the other redeeming quality of Martha in this particular situation is when she went out to meet Jesus, who was coming to cure Lazarus. And Mary wasn't there yet. So she went all the way back to Mary and said, the master is here and is asking for you. And then she went back to Jesus again. So there was no rift between the sisters. They
They
accepted each other's weaknesses and strengths.
The relationship stayed intact for sure. Yeah.
Right.
It's actually also a really beautiful lesson in correction that it's okay to be corrected. It's okay to be corrected by Jesus. It's okay to be corrected by our loved ones or our friends. And really, especially when that correction is coming out of a place of love, even if it's frustrated, half thought through love, which is kind of what Martha's coming at it from. That's how we grow with one another too, right? Like,
yeah. I was thinking to that point of like the integration that our lives are kind of require both. I noticed when I was praying with this the other day that it is immediately preceded, this passage is immediately preceded by the parable of the Good Samaritan, right, who picks up a stranger off the street and takes him to an inn and makes sure that he's totally taken care of. And then it's immediately followed by Lord, teach us to pray and the giving of the Lord's Prayer. And so it almost is like the bridge from this story about selfless giving and action and love and charity and who is my neighbor, and it goes straight from that into the Lord's Prayer. It's almost like a bridge, kind of holding those two pieces together.
Right.
I think we can often kind of fall into a trap of, not that it's wrong to like acknowledge which one you're more called to, because I think a lot of people are really called in a particular way to the gift of service, and some people in a very profound way to the gift of contemplative intercessory prayer, right? We see that even in religious life, there's active orders and contemplative orders. But even within that, we have to be very careful not to say, this is my special calling, therefore nothing else of humanity applies to me. Like, I don't need to do anything else because this is my special contribution. There is an element there of almost like misidentifying who we are, right? And it's so beautiful to be able to see if you have a gift towards one way or the other, to celebrate it and to understand that everything else around it is actually informing that gift. It's not taking away from it. So the people who really are called to service, like I remember one of the deacons in my parish who was so active doing so much outreach that's so essential. the times I see him in quiet prayer, like he's deep in there because that is the food that's going to nourish his service. And likewise, the people who really are called to contemplative intercessory prayer, like I think of Saint Therese, who you mentioned, like she let that change how she interacted with the people around her. And that was the reason that people could understand what she was contemplating, how it was changing her. And it was because of those actions that people could follow her. Like they understood where this was coming from and where it was going. So I think it's really important to be able to share the fruit and the food, like the root of everything that we're doing, regardless of which element we're more called to.
Mm-hmm. I think another example that I think of as you're talking about even Therese and some of these other examples, like Mother Teresa, you know, the way that she would describe seeing the face of Christ and seeing his thirst in the person that she was serving, you know, like that's a mystical experience. That comes from a deep contemplation that makes her able to recognize the face of the Lord when he appears to her in those places and in those ways. And so it's the two going together, because also what is service without any of the holy, you know, brought into it? What is service without the love of God being a component of what we're doing? You know, it's it fails to address the entire person. It fails to address like all of the needs of a person. It fails to acknowledge the end goal of our life. You know, it doesn't point toward heaven in the same way if it's just human needs that are being met. So it's really beautiful to see that we feel something different, you know, and like even in that example, like people all over the world could feel something different in the way that she did, exactly what so many other charities were doing in some ways, but through the eyes of faith and with the face of Jesus really strongly represented, both to herself and to the people that she's serving.
I actually think, too, in a way, this passage really pulls in the idea of communion with one another and kind of almost challenges our idea of it. And I think it's really beautiful to see how Martha was giving of herself in that moment, because coming from a Middle Eastern family myself, it is no joke when people come over to your house. It's not like you lay out chips and everything's good. Like, no way. Like, she was cleaning before that happened. She will be cleaning after that happened. She put on the whole spread. Like, otherwise it would not be acceptable. And people would be like, what the heck? Like, they don't want to see her, right? But knowing that if she knew that they were coming ahead of time, if she had any previous warning, she would have been doing those preparations. And if she didn't have previous warning, she was frantically trying to do them as they were there. All of that energy she's pouring in so that they can be attentive to the Lord, but they're helping her to be attentive too. And it's that balance we have with one another that really helps us to kind of commune with the Lord. And at the same time, when we're in communion with the Lord, we love who he loves, right? Like the closer we get to his heart, the more we care about him, the more we care about the people he loves. So it's really not possible to truly have a deepening relationship with the Lord and getting to know him more and more and not care more about other people. Because that would be like Sister Barbara. Like that would be like me becoming a sister and being like, yeah, but I don't care about your family. Like, don't tell me about your family. Like, that would not be indicative of a sisterly relationship or of a growing relationship. But something that I've always found really moving amongst the Daughters of St. Paul is our family members really are kind of adopted by one another. And, you know, we may not click with people's families, but we care about them and we're interceding for them. And that is an aspect of communion, you know, coming to fulfillment in a small way on the earth, which is so powerful.
I think about it from the other side too. For some reason, the image is coming to me of some of my very favorite moments when I was young, when I was a child, was family gatherings for like major holidays, but not like the full day, not the full gathering, not the whole whatever. It was just like the last hour or two was my favorite thing, because our family and all of my mom's sisters and their kids and just so all the cousins and just there would be a bunch of people over at Grandma's house. And it was, the big spread and the big whatever and all the planning and all the games and all the whatever. And it was fun and it was crazy and it was just like a bunch of people in a pretty small space just being loud and goofy and whatever. But then the very end of the day, when everyone's eaten, all the games are played, things are kind of cleaned up, and we would all just kind of be sitting in the living room and ready to, I don't know, watch a movie together or just talking or just something very simple. And I always remember the sound of the dishwasher running in the kitchen, and I remember it just being super cozy having everybody in the room together. And one thing that I remember is being like anxious for whoever was like still kind of, usually it was grandma, just still kind of piddling around in the kitchen taking care of little things.
Yeah.
I just wanted her to come be with us. Like I just wanted her to come join us and be in the room and have us all in one room together. And I don't know why that's exactly coming to me right at this moment, except for just that sense of communion too, where when it's time to put the hospitality down and just be with each other.
Yeah.
Because you know that later in the day, Martha had time to also sit at the feet of Jesus. And she obviously heard him well enough to be able to say later, that she knew who he was and that he was the life and that he could do, whatever he asked the Father would do. So she clearly heard enough of what he had to say. She clearly sat at his feet long enough to get there. And so also to not let things become a distraction and to really allow that communion too of just calm being together, to be I don't know what I'm trying to say, to be like something that
to be present.
Yeah, to be present, but to allow it to become a priority.
I still have to learn that. There's a lot of Martha still in me.
Where it's like, actually that last dish that needs to be scrubbed, it's okay if it soaks overnight. Or it's okay, like sometimes it's okay to just let that be so that we can be with the people.
And the other thing that impressed me was that Mary sat at the Lord's feet and listened to his teaching. And in the Old Testament, in the Psalms, it's those who listen hear his voice. And sometimes I know personally I overtake the Lord in conversation. I do all the talking, but I think he's saying, whoa, would you like to just want to know what I have to say?
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah.
So, I really feel Jesus is calling Martha and Mary. Mary, who's listening already, and Martha to listen and Mary to help, so... But our spirituality in Pauline family is both contemplative and active. The founder sort of blended the two in our rules and everything. So
he would use the phrase contemplatives in action.
In action, right. You're right.
Yeah.
I think even being able to explore the tension between those two, that contemplation and that action, is so pivotal for our lives as daughters of St. Paul. I know a lot of people are really shocked sometimes when, they're trying to get a hold of me and I'm like, I'm not free. And they're like, how are you not free? You probably work 9 to 5, right? I'm like, yeah, but then I pray like 4 more hours. And that can be really shocking to people to hear that you would work and also pray so much together. But it really is, those two things coming together is where the fruit comes from. And it's also what really deepens profoundly and pushes us deeper, even when we might not be pushing ourselves, into a radical reliance on the Lord and into a real capacity for bringing people to him almost unashamedly, to be able to bring people to him in trust. And that's been really moving for me to see kind of unfold in the people around me as I've grown in my own vocation. But also, it's been really moving for me to see in my own friends as they mature in their lives, that finding that balance in themselves has been so cool. And watching them learn to listen to the Lord's voice and recognize it, I get chills when I talk about it. Like, it's kind of like when your kid realizes like some like, you know, foundational concept for the first time and you're like, wow, he understands future. Like, you know, like when you play peekaboo and the kid finally realizes, no, you're still there, but you're still there. Like, it's actually a really amazing moment, even though the game gets wrecked. but it's kind of like that. Like, watching someone grow into that is one of the most humbling experiences. And knowing that finally they've learned what he sounds like, not to say that they won't question it at some point in the future, but what he sounds like, how to listen, like you're saying, like pulling out that element of listening and being able to come to that core. One of the most important prayers in the Jewish faith was the Shema, like, which is a prayer about listening. And it ends with love to others, like that listening to that love and receiving that love that flows out of us, right? Like, what does Jesus say? Jesus say, like, packed down and flowing over. Like, that's the blessing and the love that he gives us to flow out to others so that they can hear that voice too.
Yeah. I'm thinking a little bit about receptivity too. Like, just the idea, I kind of like to imagine that had Martha just done what she was doing and not complained about anything and just kind of let it be and then came and joined the rest of the group, that like maybe at the end of the meal, Mary would have gotten up and cleaned up. Like, I kind of like to imagine that like in some way, like they kind of would have reversed roles for a little bit. And it made me think a little bit of our own annual retreats when we have like a sister who's kind of in the kitchen, cooking, preparing all the meals, doing some of the cleaning, like doing some of the arranging of things. And then 30 or 40 sisters just on silent retreat, just with the Lord, just in chapel. And that's the intention, that's what we've come there to do. That's the expectation. And the sister in kitchen will also have her time on retreat. Yeah. And some of us who are on retreat will be helping in kitchen later. You know, it's just it's like being able to provide that space for each other to have the time at the feet of the Lord and to be receiving what he has to offer, not only what he has to offer us in our contemplation, but also what he has to offer to us through those around us. And being able to just receive that as gift without it being any kind of a guilt thing or without it being any kind of a, feeling spoiled or like anything like that, but just that this is what he's offering and this is where he wants us to be right now. And that can play out. It's a very clear scenario on the annual retreat, but then it can play out in so many other ways, I think, in our daily life of like just the way that we can be attentive to one another and to serve one another. And the more that we do that, the more we also have to become open to being on the receiving end of it. And I think that can be just as hard as for some people, the hard part is to get up and do the thing. And for others, the hard part is to not get up and do the thing.
That's something that I always did wonder. Like, was Mary drawn there out of curiosity, or did she recognize her own need, you know? And that vulnerability for us to recognize our own need and to say, you know what, I'm really sorry, I just need half an hour to pray. That sounds weird. Like, to a lot of people, that would be a very weird request. But actually, it's the most natural request that we could possibly make. I remember I think it was in Boston. My mom came to visit and we went out to a Lebanese restaurant, and one of the families working there was Muslim, and it came time that it was one of their 5 times of the day to pray. And sure enough, like they made it happen, even though the store had to remain open. There were 2 people there. One took the counter. The other person went, and there was really no room in the store, but the guy found room, like in a little corner. And I mean, you could see him. There was no private place to go, but he found the most private place he had. He put down the mat and he began to pray, and like kind of in the middle of the store. And I was very impressed by that, because I was like, you know what? I wish everyone had the freedom to recognize that I need to pray right now, you know, and to be unashamed to request a moment to step away, or to be unashamed at least interiorly, because obviously there's moments where you can't just announce to the world that you need to pray, but at least interiorly to step back and pray within you. Like if we had less shame around that, or less feelings of guilt as though we should be doing something else, or as though this is a weird thing that only we're experiencing and it's not normal, that could not be further from the truth. It is our primary call, our first call. And if we are able to build those moments in, even for ourselves interiorly and even exteriorly, if and when it is appropriate or possible, like that can change the world. Like the floodgates of grace that opens upon the world, you cannot underestimate that, the grace of that prayer, you know?
Yeah, I experienced that at the Boston airport because they have a chapel there. And I was waiting because other sisters had to be dropped off at different gates. A gentleman came into the chapel, which is, I'm not sure if at that time the Blessed Sacrament was present, but he stayed after the last pew and he bowed and he was praying. And I was like, wow, this is so beautiful to see the faith he had. But he did come and pray, and people passing by could see, you know, it was a beautiful experience. Yeah.
I'm always so grateful when places like schools or airports or hospitals make a sacred space for people to be able to go and be with the Lord in silence, or at least some semblance of silence, and just to acknowledge that this is as important as having a washroom or having a cafeteria, or like this is as important. We need a room like this.
Right.
And I know that not every airport chapel has the Blessed Sacrament. Thankfully, in Boston, we do. But it is especially moving when you walk in and you get that little surprise of like, oh, you're here like double.
Yeah.
You know, like extra here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to be able to provide that space for others too. I mean, like even just this morning, I texted Sister Orianne and I said, there's a meeting happening and I think I need a little interior time. Is it okay? Can you take my place in this meeting? And she did it, you know? So it's like just being able to provide that for each other. But then that means we have to recognize when we need it and ask for it too.
And another thing to add for what our founder did, because before we didn't have, we had meditation, morning prayer, mass, and an hour of adoration. And then maybe you've heard this before.
I love this story, yeah.
And then after the council, the founder added an extra half hour of prayer. But we're so busy and we're trying to publish books and everything. And he said, you will do more with this extra prayer time. The Lord will help you to accomplish your apostolate even more. So
yeah, I heard, and I don't know if this is correct, but I heard that he actually added the half hour in response to a request from some of the sisters to cut the hour in half.
Right. Oh, yes, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
So they had asked, can we make the hour of adoration a half hour of adoration? We just have so much to do. And so he went away and he prayed about the question and came back and said, no, you have another half hour added on top of the hour.
An hour and a half total.
You shall pray more.
That's right. Which, like, I mean, honestly, I love him even more for it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
to me, that is like Holy Spirit.
And I want to look at those. I want to know who those sisters were and say, what were you thinking? But I'm sure they're long gone. But yeah, no, I love that story. I love that. And the faith that shows.
I don't want to talk about myself, but I did meet the founder.
Oh, you did?
When he came, yes.
Oh, you met the founder when he came here?
It was 1963. I was a novice because we had to take care of lighting the candles for Mass. So I wanted to say something to him because I was taking an Italian class. So I was walking with the candle extinguisher in my hand, and I was going very slowly because I wanted to meet him when he came out of the sacristy through the sanctuary. So I'm going, wah, 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 walking very slowly. And Mother Paula was like, quick, quick, quick. And I didn't know if she wanted me to move quick, but she wanted the photographer to get his picture. And she was trying to get me out of the picture. And I didn't comprehend. I wanted to say something like, thank you, founder, Father Alberione, for coming or something.
Oh, wow.
You know, because I was the one that put out the candles. So that's why I was in the forefront of the chapel.
In the picture?
In the picture, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yes, and Mother Tekla, we met twice, our group. She came 2 different times. Yeah, so.
I hear she was pretty fun.
Yes. Yeah, she had a little, like an evening with us, and had different little, I don't want to say jokes, but little quips from her hometown in northern Italy that had like little meanings for them or for those who hear the story. And they were like, brought humor to the group. Yeah.
I heard she was a little bit of a prankster too.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So, I love it.
Yep.
These are our roots.
Yes. Pranks.
Well, she pulled one on me after she died because I was at the folding machine in our bindery, and somebody came in the bindery and said, Mother Tekla just passed away, and I turned really quickly, and my veil got caught in the folding machine.
Oh no!
Oh, shoot.
So I couldn't reach the switch because it was behind me where the veil was stuck in the rollers. So another sister from the printing machine saw me. She couldn't understand my posture because I was sort of looking up at the ceiling and waving at her. And then she finally realized I was stuck in a position.
Oh,
so
dear.
she came and turned off the machine and then
Thank God.
got me out of the rollers.
Oh no! Was your veil folded?
It looked a little bit of like an accordion. Yeah.
Because this is the machine that would have been folding the paper for the books, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, funny.
So,
well, should we each go around and share our biggest takeaway from the conversation, something we might be going away to pray with a little bit?
For me, this kind of came out of, like you said, Sister Benedicta, remembering what it was like to have people over at my house and like the flurry and terror of it all, and the peaceful moments after. And I guess just reflecting on that and realizing, as we were talking about, the need to acknowledge my own need for quiet and prayer in those flurried moments, I just really feel invited to kind of step back and look at my own life as it is right now and to find those moments that are flurried beyond reasonability, perhaps, where the Lord really is inviting me to take a step back for a little bit more listening and a little bit more prayer.
Yeah, for me, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, sorry. Well, also, listening came out strongly to me because Mary listened to the word of God. And Martha did a lot of speaking, but she did reflect afterwards. Martha did, because she proclaimed him the Son of God, the Son of the living God. So for me, at this particular time of my life, being older now, to listen more, because we had so many years of a lot of activity of printing and binding and visiting door to door, and now the Lord is still blessing me with good health, but I want to be more attentive to what He's saying through the voice of others and through, first of all, through prayer, which I really treasure the time of meditation in the morning and an hour of adoration and a half hour of personal prayer. So, yes, I want to listen more.
Yeah, mine's very similar and kind of colored a little bit by what you were saying, Sister Orianne, of just how it is the most natural thing for us to be in prayer, and even like that quote that I found from Gregory the Great, just like how the one thing for Mary, the better part for Mary was, it's the one thing because God is one, and it's the one thing because like he says, Martha is concerned about many things, and we are in this life, but the natural thing is to be concerned about the one thing. And so just kind of as I'm reflecting with that and thinking more about this need for kind of the receptivity and to just be in silence a little bit, I think I will be looking a little bit more too at my own routine, my own schedule, my own day, and seeing where things might be a little bit out of whack and where maybe I need to kind of adjust and provide a little bit more space, whether it's just, not turning the radio on in the car, or, whatever it needs to be, to just kind of give myself that little bit of extra time in that natural state of just focus on the one thing.
There's a chapter in The Imitation of Christ. I can't remember if it's in part 3 of the book or part 4, but it says only Jesus. Only Jesus, and it's about intimacy with our Lord to have. So that just came to mind when you were speaking.
I'll go check it out.
Check it out. Yeah. Only Jesus.
So for our closing prayer, we thought we would pray the invocations to Jesus Master, which is just kind of a litany of invocations to Jesus, who is our Master, Way, Truth, and Life, written by our founder, Blessed James Alberione. So Sister Barbara can lead it, and Sister Orianne and I will respond.
Jesus Master, sanctify my mind and increase my faith. Jesus, teaching in the church, draw everyone to your school. Jesus Master, deliver me from error, from vain thoughts, and from eternal darkness. O Jesus, way between the Father and us, I offer you all and await all from you. O Jesus, way of sanctity,
make me your faithful imitator.
O Jesus, way between the Father and us,
render me perfect as the Father who is in heaven.
O Jesus, life, live in me,
so that I may live in you.
O Jesus, life, do not permit me to be separated from you. O Jesus, life,
grant that I may live eternally in the joy of your love.
O Jesus, truth, may I be light for the world. O Jesus, way, may I be example and model for souls. O Jesus, life, may my presence bring grace and consolation everywhere.
Jesus Master, Way, Truth, and Life,
have mercy on us.
Mary, Queen of Apostles,
pray for us.
Saint Paul the Apostle,
pray for us.
From all sin,
deliver us, O Lord.
Thank you so much for joining us, Sister Barbara.
Oh,
it was really lovely to have you.
Thank you for inviting me. God bless you.
God bless you. And God bless you, everybody who's listening. You'll hear from us again in 2 weeks.
Bye.
Bye. God bless you.
Thank you so much for listening. This podcast is a fruit of the Daughters Project. This initiative of the Daughters of St. Paul to spread the gospel online is made possible by our generous Patreon supporters. Consider joining us in our mission by contributing to Patreon today. You can find us at thedaughtersproject.com and on social media at DaughterSTPaul. God bless you.